As I drag my exhausted ass into 2025, I find myself relieved to be staring down the barrel of a relatively chill anime lineup, by which I mean we only have to worry about Orb, Blue Box, Dragon Ball Daima, Shangri-La Frontier, Ari Ferretta, Danmachi, and ReZero rolling over from last season, on top of exciting new seasons of Bang Dream, Ishura, Dr. Stone, My Happy Marriage, Toilet Bound Hanako, Solo Leveling, Apothecary Diaries, and The 100 Girlfriends Who Really Love You. One Piece is even in reruns, which leaves plenty of time to catch up on old anime we might have missed, or discover some of the great new ones coming out right now too, which there are a fair few of, mixed in amid an absolute mountain of trash that I hear the chefs over at Chez Garbage are very excited to get their hands on. And I've watched all of it, the good, the bad, and the painfully abysmal, to make sure you don't miss a single hidden gem. Not gonna lie, a lot of that good stuff is on the more low-key side of things this season, but if you're the type who gets bored when anime isn't exploding enough, make sure you stick with me through the rom-coms and dramas to the very end, because I always save the best for last on these lists, and our last entry this time is something really special. These are the ones to watch for Winter 2025, brought to you by GamerSupps. 4-on-1, huh? Yeah, I can take you losers. If you, just give me a sec to go get my delicious new Pestily's Antidote Lime Punch flavor of GamerSupps that I bought by going to gamersupps.gg/basement and using promo code BASEMENT for 10% off an order of any size. I don't know why you felt the need to add all that, but sure, man. Gives us time to run a Twitch ad. Sunraku? Hold up a sec. I gotta shake it. That's good. Okay, let's do this. Wow, thanks, I guess? No problem. I was totally about to kick their asses using the boosted energy and focus provided by a scientifically optimized blend of caffeine, nootropics, and essential vitamins, though. Oh, I'm sorry. I just thought Wow, that's, not a lot of clothes. Oh, yeah, it's a long story. Can I drink GamerSupps out of your belly button? What? I think... I've gotta... go. To get more GamerSupps, right? From gamersupps.gg/basement? That went well. He's totally into me. My first recommendation of 2025 is also probably the most obvious, at least if you paid any attention to my video on the future of Shonen Jump last year. Sakamoto Days is the Trigun of John Wick likes, a story where the wonderful woman that the world's greatest assassin left that life for is still around, raising their adorable daughter and running a cute little convenience store alongside her increasingly chubby mans. And she has a very strict no murders or I divorce you policy, so when he thought he was out, they pull him back in, Taro Sakamoto has to get very creative with his insanely deadly skill set to ensure that none of the gunmen gunning for the bounty that's been mysteriously placed on his head end up insanely dead. He's aided in this endeavor by the store's two part-time clerks, Shin Asakura, another ex-assassin, and Lu Zhaotang, the daughter of a now-dead triad boss, both of whom have likewise renounced murder as per the official store policy, and thus must use their clairvoyant psychic powers and incredible martial arts skills, respectively, to pacify foes in a similarly pacifistic, Vash the Stampede sort of way, which serves as the foundation of some absolutely bonkers action scenes, bookended by cute little comedy bits about a chubby OG-san fantasizing about brutally murdering everyone who annoys him.
Why are you always daydreaming about ways to take me out?
You talk too much.
That action does lean quite a bit harder toward the superhuman shonen battle side of the spectrum than the elegant ballets of bullets that John Wick is known for, but if you want to see an anime where the hero uses those kind of skills to very artfully not kill people, you could always watch Lycoris Recoil instead. The K-On! Of Triguns of John Wick likes, which is also, if I'm being honest, just a considerably more impressive anime all around, and that's kind of the one big letdown with this adaptation. It's just not that well animated. It's not bad by any stretch of the imagination, but the storyboarding and sound design do most of the heavy lifting, and when the manga has some of the coolest, best executed fights currently being printed in Jump, it's hard not to feel a little let down that the anime can't hit a similar level with its Sakuga. Also, on a personal level, I'm a little bit upset that they jumped from Chapter 1 to Chapter 4 with this adaptation, meaning I'll never get an animated clip of the terrorists trying to drive a bus into the Shueisha building because their favorite Shonen Jump manga got canceled to use as a meme whenever my favorite Jump manga gets canceled every 3 months. But, like, objectively speaking, it is probably the right call to skip those early gag manga, but it's absurdly violent bits and dive right into developing the plot and ensemble cast, which have always been the manga's strongest features. And that's what this rec really comes down to. At the end of the day, this is still Sakamoto Days, one of the frontrunners to be Jump's new flagship series. And even if the quality of this adaptation basically guarantees it's going to fall behind Dandadan, Chainsaw Man, and Kagurabachi in that race, it is still the same phenomenal story with a great sense of humor and rock-solid emotional core that managed to climb to the very top of the most competitive comic anthology in the world. I'm definitely disappointed it's not living up to its potential to be one of the greatest anime of all time, like Dandadan just was, but even in falling short of that, it ended up being pretty fucking good. Still, few things in this world are as frustrating to see as unrealized potential, and few know that pain worse than the deuteragonist of Medalist, Tsukasa Akeiraji, a late-blooming figure skater whose teen dreams were dashed against the rigid and frigid reality of the rink, an ultra-competitive world where most start training at 6, and if you haven't gotten anywhere by 10, you are officially over the hill. By the time he got into figure skating, everyone had already given up on his chances, and the best he could hope for was a short-lived career as an ice dancer before transitioning eventually and reluctantly to a gig as a coach. But then he meets Inori Yuitsuka, a 5th grade girl with a burning passion for the ice that she's never been able to pursue until now. A girl who knows deep down that this is what she is meant to do with her life, just like he did when everyone told him it was too late, and he's not gonna let that happen again. Seeing himself in Inori, and on top of that, the talent and drive of a true champion, he vows to do everything in his power to help her win the gold medal she deserves. Medalist is a powerful story about not letting your dreams be dreams, written by a mangaka who fully lives that truth. Many years ago, its creator Tsurumai Kata wrote a doujinshi titled Natsumi Harusei is a very cute voice actress chronicling the legendary Seiyu's career over 100 pages, which she gave away for free like a fucking gospel tract just to spread the good word about her fave. Then, in 2018, after learning that Harusei skates as a hobby, she tweeted, "I want to make a manga about figure skating that gets turned into an anime starring Natsume Harusei." Now it's 2024, and I'll give you one guess who's playing Inori. And she's joined by a very impressive cast across the board, including Jinshi himself as Tsukasa, all of whose lines have been adapted for the screen by the absolute GOAT, Juki Hanada. I honestly do not think you could put an emotionally intense, character-focused sports drama about young women like this in better hands. And since we're almost definitely never getting any more Yuri on Ice, I don't think you could find a better anime to fill that particular void in your heart either, though it is a shame that you will have to go to Disney Plus to watch it. Speaking of good and long-gone TV we'll always crave more of, though, Ameku MD, Dr. Detective, is House MD if House were a tsundere waifu. So, just House MD then. Minus the Vicodin addiction, of course. You're never going to see that level of biblically accurate Sherlock-like on Japanese TV. But you still get the smug attitude, the obsession with weird medical problems, the Wilson bullying, the administration antagonizing, and all the snarkily delivered deductions that make non-anime but still a waifu house so fun. This anime ticks a lot of the boxes I look for in a great mystery, but not quite all of them. It's well directed, with a palpable atmosphere of of intrigue, strong, fun characters inhabiting environments that feel properly lived in, like they exist as more than just backdrops to hide obvious clues in. And the mysteries themselves are pretty damn creative, leaning on esoteric medical facts to craft crime scenes that fans of the genre won't feel like they've seen a million times before. But at the same time, those facts might be a little too esoteric for the show's own good, making it all but impossible to piece together the hows and whys of each case before the doctor detective steps forward to point her finger at the culprit and reveal her brilliant reasoning, at least if you don't have an MD yourself. So even though the show's entire opening monologue is about the joys of flexing one's analytical muscles, it doesn't really give its audience an opportunity to do that for themselves by solving the mystery ahead of time, which is kind of the make or break factor for a lot of mystery fans, and that does make it a bit hard to give this show the full-throated recommendation I feel like its production values and general quality deserve, especially when Apothecary Diaries is like right there. But if you can look past that letdown, the clues do still fall into place in a super satisfying way when all is revealed. The medical facts contained within are genuinely fascinating, dare I say.
It's so educational!
And on the whole, it's a well-animated, beautifully storyboarded, excellently acted show with a rock-solid script and great music. Plus, one of the supporting characters is literally Columbo. How can a mystery fan not want to watch that? Another show that turned out to be surprisingly educational is Okitsura. Fell in love with an Okinawan girl, but I just wish I know what she's saying. The latest in a very, very long line of shonen rom-coms about a guy with a crush on a cute girl with a weird quirk that most of the jokes are about. In this case, transfer student Teruaki Nakamura's crush, Hina Kyan, speaks in incomprehensibly thick Uchi Naguchi, the extremely fun-to-say native dialect of Japan's southernmost island, Okinawa, meaning he needs her Gyaru best friend, Kana Higa, to translate basically everything she says all the time in real time for him, which Kana is all too tragically eager to do because, of course, she in turn is nursing a massive crush on our boy, which I really hope goes somewhere, honestly, because she's high-key best girl, even if Hina's bubbly animated energy can be pretty adorable in its own right. Maybe I'm just saying that because she interacts with him way more often, but she's just really good. I'm rooting for her. I'm rooting for you, girl. But however it shakes out, the romance is really just a narrative through line stringing together a ton of facts and jokes about Okinawan culture, language, and history that are every bit as fascinating as they are hilarious.
比嘉さんだ。はーい、比嘉さん。あれ、読んだか？え？
私？
いや、はいさい。What? みんな比嘉さん？
沖縄は比嘉製ばっかりなのよ。
This is one of those anime whose chief goal is to put a brand new vacation destination on your bucket list, and between friendly locals pushing local fried delicacies with all the aggression of an angel assaulting Tokyo 3 and the relaxing vibe of cracking a cool can of A&W root beer against a warm summer sunset, which speaks directly to my Canadian soul, it's got me sold. Or it would if Skate the Infinity hadn't already sold me years ago and also spoken to the Canadian in me, come to think of it. Still, with its gorgeously characterful animation and intense focus on local culture, Okitsura does a particularly great job of conveying a sense of Okinawa as a place you want to go to. And it's just real darn cute and funny to boot. Speaking of cute and funny love stories, I Have a Crush at Work is a rare but welcome example of what anime romance can be when it's not about teenagers or 20-somethings acting like teenagers. No, will they, won't they pussyfooting? No, working up the courage to hold hands or kiss. Yui and Masugu are busy adults with jobs and responsibilities that already greatly impede their ability to sneak around behind their gossipy coworkers' backs. Plus, they already spent like 6 years bickering like tsundere bitches off screen before they hooked up and the anime started. So, by golly, they ain't gonna waste any more time fooling around when they could be fooling around. Which also happens off screen, to be clear. Rest assured, this is a wholesome type romance anime, despite how increasingly down horrendous they both are at work every day. But that's where the comedy and the romantic tension comes from, trying and mostly failing not to let on to everyone around the water cooler that they actually did get a room already, as opposed to, you know, the generic indecision and misunderstandings that tend to dominate this genre. Not that those things aren't fun. I love me some Ranma and Dandadan, but sometimes you just want to see a couple actually be a couple, because there's plenty of compelling human drama to be found just in watching people figure out how to do that. And aside from Otakoi, there aren't many stories that deliver on that this well. Unfortunately, you will have to go a little out of your way to watch I Have a Crush at Work, because there are official English subtitles. This isn't a girls band cry situation, but they're only available in Singapore. Luckily, they are available free on Bilibili, so it'll only cost you a VPN subscription, which you're going to want to have anyway, because Sakamoto Days is running a week behind on Netflix for some reason, even though the dubs and subs are already done. But still, bit of a pain in the butt. If you are craving that classically tropey flavor of hormone-driven romantic drama, though, Winter's lineup also has you covered there with Honey Lemon Soda, a shoujo manga adaptation, which are also increasingly depressingly rare these days, from JC staff about a shy, nerdy girl who's pulled out of her shell by a popular jerk with a secret heart of gold. Which you don't think he has at first on account of the anime starts with him trying to spray some other jerks with a soda bottle, but he misses and hits her instead, and he doesn't even apologize for it. But then later in first period, he's also wearing a tracksuit so that she doesn't have to be the only one in class with a tracksuit, because that would be really embarrassing. So you know that deep down, he is in fact as thoughtful as he is brooding and handsome, thus validating the choice she made in a flashback before the anime started to go to the slightly dumber kid's high school that she knew he was going to be at, instead of the really smart kid's school that she could have gotten into, where also none of her middle school bullies would have been at. But if she went there, then she never would have learned to speak up for herself from him, and also he never would have bullied those bullies back so that they don't bully her no more, and eventually probably at least the girl ones become her friends. And look, you like Kimi Ni Sodake? You want a Kimi Ni Sodake where the kids know what a smartphone is but still don't use them effectively to solve any of their melodramatic miscommunications? Or would you just settle for literally any new shoujo anything, so long as the animation and writing are halfway decent, because the industry is literally starving you right now? Then watch this one and maybe consider buying some merch so they don't starve you even harder next year. There were only 10 shoujo adaptations across all of 2024. Shit is dire. I am not exaggerating. Just to put that number in perspective, last year also saw 36 different isekai and reverse isekai anime released. 40 if you count Chinese donghua. When no one was looking, they made 40 isekai. That's as many as 4 tens, and that's terrible. Well, most of them were, but even at that level of insane oversaturation, a few still managed to do something genuinely creative with the premise every season or two. And right now, there must be something in the Tokyo tap water, because this season's lineup has no less than 3 legitimately compelling isekai, plus one more pretty decent bargain bin option, and a couple more kind of interesting pieces of trash that we'll talk about next month. The Red Ranger becomes an adventurer in another world is a concept so fun, I'm genuinely shocked I've never seen it done before. After sacrificing himself in the climactic final battle to stop the villainous Breakup King from destroying all of humanity's friendships, Toka Asagaki, aka Kizuna Sentai Red, finds himself isekai'd away to your typical swords and sorcery type RPG setting, where, unable to ignore the cries of the helpless and downtrodden, he eventually gives up on finding a way home and settles into a career as a heroic adventurer, using his advanced battlesuit and weapons, which baffle every mage that sees them because instead of magic, they literally run on the power of friendship to punch every monster that comes his way so hard it explodes, which actually isn't super great for farming loot drops, it turns out. Also, he's got to be careful not to explode stuff too close to any party members, but on the flip side, it is pretty fucking awesome. And he's just such a darn lovable golden retriever of a man that it doesn't take long for his Megazord cockpit to start filling up with new adventuring buddies willing to overlook those inconveniences in order to make their dreams come true and bring justice and friendship to the world and stuff. If you like Super Sentai or Isekai, or especially both, this show is an absolute blast. And if you enjoy the general dynamic of a based in friendship-pilled Red Ranger confusing a bunch of wizards and stuff, I also highly recommend checking out the Last Horizon book series by Will White, which has that, plus space wizards, superheroes, space zombies, giant eldritch insects, tons of fun stuff. But now I'm really getting sidetracked, so let's bring this back to anime and roll it back to the dire state of modern shoujo. It's so bad that nowadays you're more likely to find an inspiring girls coming of age story in a seinen manga adaptation. And on that note, my next recommendation is Flower and Ashura, an inspiring coming of age story about a girl from a very small island town with medium-sized dreams of reciting poetry on national TV, and the broadcast club senpai who will help her make those dreams come true. And also, not teach her what it feels like to kiss another girl, apparently, even though the whole show really feels like it's going in that direction, though the original manga was written by Hibike Euphonium creator Yume no Takeda, so that actually makes perfect sense, and Yuri enjoyers should take that as their warning not to get their hopes too high. But poetry enjoyers, spoken word performance enthusiasts, and people who generally just appreciate it when the anime artisans at Studio Bind splooge sakuga all over their eye holes are in for an absolute treat, because this show is breathtakingly beautiful on every level, from the writing to the acting to the music to the holy shit, just look at it. The way it conveys the feeling of being swept up in the imagery and atmosphere of a great orator's words is nothing short of spellbinding, and even in its less bombastic moments, the characters and environments are consistently lively, with evocative direction making the relatively small and quiet emotions at play feel big and loud. Several moments straight up gave me chills. As you'd expect from this author, Flower and Asura is a poignant tale full of eccentric but believable characters where you're sure to learn quite a bit about the world of a very specific performance art and find plenty of heartwarming girlfriend supporting girlfriend type content along the way, which should hopefully satiate that starving shoujosei audience just as much as the adult men it's ostensibly aimed at. If stories about supportive female friendship are destined to become the primary domain of anime for grown-ass men, though, none embody that shift more exuberantly than From Bureaucrat to Villainess, Dad's Been Reincarnated. The story of Kenzaburo Tondabayashi, a Showa-era otaku turned doting dad and government pencil pusher who pulls a Yusuke Urameshi one day to save some kid from a date with Truck-kun, only to find himself trapped in the favorite otome game of his daughter who's too young to get that Yu Yu Hakusho reference. Nerdy enough to grasp the general conceit of these newfangled isekai things that are all the rage these days, but not nearly enough to know any specific villainess tropes, Kenzaburo can't rely on genre savviness to save him from the presumably dire root endings facing fancy drill-haired bully Lady Grace Auvergne. But what he does have is decades of practice bowing and scraping scraping his way to the middle of Japan's labyrinthine government apparatus, and with his insanely OP cheat skill, elegant conversion, translating his unrivaled salaryman manners into the refined etiquette and mannerisms of a sort of English but with a lot of Japanese flourishes and the fine world-building details aristocrat, he is poised to win the hearts of the heroine and every sexy bishi boy at Royal Magic Academy, whether he wants to or not. And hey, even if that particular part of the fantasy doesn't particularly appeal to him, he still gets to appreciate the real wish fulfillment isekai shit, like having a full head of hair again, plus eyes that can read small text and rapidly shift focus between near and distant objects. Now that's the life. Bureaucrat to Villainess is easily the funniest new anime of the winter season and one of the freshest takes on the isekai formula I have seen in ages. Though not quite the freshest. It's not the last good anime I have to talk about today, though, because as usual, on top of the top 10, we've got a few good things to recommend in our bargain bin. Starting with Tasokare Hotel, which is a real bargain of an anime that you can watch for free on YouTube right now. It's an adaptation of a pretty cool mobile point-and-click adventure thing about this hotel located somewhere between life and death, where folks who can't quite remember how they got there try to symbolically sort out their memories and figure out if they're dead or not. Tasokare Hotel is a delightfully moody anime with a subtly surreal vibe and super likable characters that instantly made me want to give the game a shot, and it is definitely worth watching, especially if you don't have any anime service subscriptions. On the subject of having no idea how you got somewhere, though, somehow we've reached a point where I can no longer call Birdie Wing the lesbian golf anime, since Star Pictures' new original series, Sorairo Utility, also appears to be aiming for that extremely specific niche, albeit from a very different angle of cute girls doing golf things, in contrast to Birdie Wing's decidedly more insane cute girls doing Beyblade with golf balls, which is a pretty good fit for the sport, honestly. Waifus chillin' under calm blue skies and over a smooth jazz soundtrack is certainly a fine recipe for relaxing vibes, but given the option, I would still watch Birdie Wing every time. Luckily though, time permitting, I can always watch both, and with its story of self-improvement and self-discovery, Sorairo Utility is doing a pretty okay job of filling the void left by the recently canceled Shonen Jump coming-of-age golf-em-up Green Greens. The protagonist's stated motivation of wanting to find something she can be the protagonist at is a little insufferable, not gonna lie, but when she shuts up about that, which is most of the time, it's a pretty good time. Next up, I may be a guild receptionist, but I'll solo any boss to clock out on time is one of them not quite isekai fantasy type things with an insanely OP protagonist that tells you its whole premise in the title, and that is a pretty darn funny premise, even if it doesn't really make sense if you think about it for more than 2 seconds. Like, realistically, she'd probably make more and work less if she was just the world's strongest adventurer full-time instead of doing it as an unpaid side hustle, right? But on an emotional level, at least, I think she conveys that feeling of staring down so much paperwork you just want to kill something quite effectively. And the Cloverworks Sakuga really makes the world around her come alive, especially in the OP, which is quite possibly the most gorgeously animated thing of the year so far. So if you can suspend your disbelief just a little, this should still be perfect for anyone who wants to soak up some fantasy vibes after a long day at the office. It's the sort of thing the salaryman protagonist of Welcome to Japan Miss Elf would probably appreciate if he didn't already have the strange ability to visit a parallel fantasy world of his own in his dreams, Merhen Awakens romance style. Though he doesn't actually realize that's what's happening until a chance encounter with an ornery mama dragon gets him and his elf dream girl isekai'd out of the dream and into his real life bed. Naked in her case, because you don't take clothes with you when you go into the isekai world or back, even though you can take food with you. Though once he gets that dealt with and gets around to actually welcoming Miss Elf to Japan, the show does settle into a more laid-back, wholesome mode, letting us simply enjoy the culture shock of a cute elf girl seeing skyscrapers and cars for the first first time, enjoying her first bites of fresh-cooked Japanese cuisine, and so on, in an adorable, barely disguised tourism commercial driven by likable characters and a refreshing perspective on the whole isekai dynamic. That said, if you want a decidedly less wholesome elf show where the elf is wearing decidedly less clothes, Behe Neko, the elf girl's pet cat is secretly an S-rank monster, is an absurdly horny isekai-adjacent fantasy type thing about an elf girl with absurdly huge boobs who adopts an absurdly adorable pet cat she found in a dungeon, not realizing it's secretly, you heard the title. Also, he's secretly a reincarnated knight whose code of chivalry is seriously tested as they go on adventures together. She lets him sleep on her boobs, and he watches her take her clothes off. A lot. A lot. And so do we. Uncensored, which is not something you can take for granted in an ecchi anime these days. And on top of them bare elf and cat girl titties, we also get to enjoy fascinating lore tidbits, such as cat girls may actually be the result of interbreeding between magic cats and humanoids. So yeah, this is definitely some weird fucking anime smut, but surprisingly fun and aesthetically appealing smut that is definitely gonna be the crown jewel of winter's hottest trash menu. Don't worry though, ladies, you'll be eating well come trash time too, because despite the dire state of the demographic, there is one more shoujo thing this season. Anyway, I'm falling in love with you. A rare reverse harem story set in 2020 about a teen girl whose sexy senpai smoochin' plans for sophomore year end up being waylaid by that one infectious disease from 2020. You know the one, which the show won't actually say the name of, it just calls it the infectious disease, like some kind of YouTuber trying to avoid getting demonetized in 2020. But it turns out that's not the end of the world. The lack of senpai smooching, not the self-censorship or the disease that they are self-censoring, because all four of her childhood friends just happen to be insanely hot guys with fangirls at school and stuff who all want to smooch her instead. This show is already getting all the fun kinds of messy, like kabedan in the school pool shower messy, and I am thoroughly looking forward to its roast at Chez Garbage. Last, and maybe least, but maybe not, the classic giant robot reboot, Aquarion Myth of Emotions, makes itself pretty hard to recommend, honestly, with a slow burn first episode, cutesy cartoon character designs that don't really fit its introspective, apocalyptic tone, and stiff animation that doesn't really take advantage of those designs, but its surreal script, packed with fascinating philosophical ideas, does have me eager to see where it's gonna go next, and considering it shares a screenwriter with Millennium actress and Perfect Blue, there's a pretty good chance that could lead to a satisfying payoff. I definitely think Aquarion Moe is worth keeping an eye on, even if I can't confidently recommend it yet, and it could even become the sleeper hit of the season if it's not just a confusing mess. This is the sort of anime the 3-episode test was made for. It's clearly doing something, I'm just not sure if it's anything good yet. But for now, that brings us to the bottom of the bargain bin and the end of the ones to watch. Here are both lists of shows and where you can watch them one more time if you need a quick reference. I'm Geoff Thew, professional Zenshu evangelist, begging you to tell your friends about Zenshu. They got friggin' Ichiro Itano to storyboard their Itano Circus episode. I literally have not stopped for days.